I like Navy outright. I'm calling for the upset. College football has never been better. Interest has never been higher. Believe that we are at the dawn of the golden age of college football. It was an epic day of college football. It was one of those days where you fall in love with the sport all over again. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the Joel Klatt Show. I am Joel Klatt. The show, as always, is presented by Hampton by Hilton, and we have got a loaded picks and previews edition of the Joel Klatt Show here on a Thursday morning. First and foremost, remember, wherever you're listening, go ahead and rate and review our show. We'd very much appreciate that. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. We've got a lot of stuff coming out. We've got that behind-the-scenes episode coming out on the YouTube channel, a week in the life, basically, of what it takes to do this job, do all of these things, the podcast, the game, everything. That was the week of the Wisconsin-Alabama game, so that's coming out on the YouTube. Make sure to subscribe so you know exactly when that's coming out. Leave a comment, like the video, all the things. And then wherever you're social media-ing, wherever you like to social media, we're there, okay? So at Joel Klatt Show, wherever you're at, wherever you TikTok, Instagram, wherever you're at, we're there. You can follow me personally. By the way, I do all of my social media activity on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and I'm at Joel Klatt. And Vol fans, love you. Absolutely love you. I mean, listen, it's not my fault that the kid couldn't light his cigar. So, like, you can be mad at me all you want, but it's like, hey, that is what it is. That's the video that we saw. Okay, picks and previews, and the heater continues, folks. Listen, welcome into the show, and we're having a great year here with picks against the spread. We were 4-2 last week, and to be honest, that was our worst week in the last month. We're now 18-4 over the last 4 weeks. That's over 80%. And we're now 29-14 on the season. So that's 67%. So the picks, I don't want to say I like them this week, but hot. See that? I'm shuffling the page. These are hot picks right here. Hot picks. All right, here we go. Let's break down the game that I'll be at. Again, I don't make the pick in the game that I'm going to cover, but I will be at Big Noon Saturday, as always, as Nebraska heads onto the road to take on Ohio State and the Buckeyes. Both teams, by the way, coming off of losses, and both teams desperate to try to get that taste out of their mouth. Nebraska last week got their doors blown off against Indiana, and Indiana's kind of introduction to the country. The last time we saw Ohio State was their loss to Oregon in that thriller up in Eugene, where Will Howard didn't get down in time. They didn't get the field goal, and they lose by 1. And so now they've had that taste in their mouth ever since then. So it feels like that happened a long time ago, and Ohio State has been stewing. So I'm imagining we're going to get a very rested, excited, and a lot of effort from this Ohio State team. On the Nebraska side, remember, Dylan Raiola, their quarterback, he was a one-time Ohio State commit. Early on in his recruiting process, he actually committed to Ryan Day and the Buckeyes, and now he gets to face the Buckeyes for the first time. If we are looking at the Nebraska side, this Nebraska team was overwhelmed last week. Offensively, they were overwhelmed. Dylan Raiola is a guy that, as a true freshman, shows you a lot of great potential, but then there are moments where the floor kind of falls out from under him. And so on the broadcast last week, and even as I was talking on the show last week, what you see is these moments of greatness, and then you see these moments of growth. And what he needs to do is really lean into learning from those moments of growth. Now, they've got to do a better job running the football. They need to do a better job protecting him in the pocket so that he can get the ball down the field. They also need to do a better job winning on the outside. They have not done a great job creating separation and winning and catching the football on the outside. And some of those guys have got to do a better job. And then on the defensive side for Nebraska, you look at, they were totally overwhelmed by this Indiana offense that was spectacular. They've been spectacular, by the way, all year long. So this is not an anomaly. This is not like, oh, one game Indiana came out and played really well on offense. This is the number one scoring offense in the country, this Indiana team. I do I do think that Nebraska played their worst game last week, and I am expecting something much better. I'm expecting them to go ahead and fix some of the things that we saw last week. The problem is now they're about to face a Buckeyes offense that is littered with star power. It's all over the field. Wide receiver, it's there. Running back, it's there. And so it's going to be tough for them in this game. Ohio State in the first game since Oregon, and also their first game that they will be playing without their left tackle, Josh Simmons. Josh Simmons got banged up, and now he's going to be out for the season. That announcement coming this week from the Buckeyes. That's a loss for them, and it's a significant loss because he was playing at a pretty high level. There were some scouts around the country that I was talking to that were saying that he was playing himself into the upper second round, maybe even the late first round until that injury. So they're going to be playing with what will become a weakened offensive line. I'm interested to see how that affects their run game moving forward. Nebraska's run defense struggled mightily last week against Indiana. So what does Chip Kelly do in this game plan to get the defense going, or the run game going? I think that's something that's very fascinating in this game, and I expect that they'll lean into the run game since they didn't lean into the run game against Oregon. Remember, after a loss, what you want to do as a team is you want to go out and you want to fix the things that you saw that need to be fixed. The run game is one of those. They had the nice Travion Henderson run against the Ducks, and then after that, they did not run the football particularly well. They're going to want to fix that this week against Nebraska. And then the big question, right? The big fix is this defense for Ohio State. And this is why I saved it for the last part. Ohio State's defense in big games has just not been very good over the last few years. They don't get to the quarterback and they give up far too many explosive plays. And the exact same thing happened in that loss against Oregon. So here they are. They gave up 8 huge plays to the Ducks. They did not record a sack, and something has to change. What I'm most fascinated in this matchup is what does Jim Knowles do, the defensive coordinator, to change things up? I'm fully expecting them to change something up from a schematics perspective about the way that they rush the quarterback. Remember, Jim Knowles, in his background, has more of a defense that leaned into this specific position called the jack position. And it was a hybrid style position that moved around quite a bit. And the ability to move around that one player who was kind of a linebacker, hybrid rusher style player, what that allowed them to do was create more exotic pass rushing looks. We did not see that against Oregon. And candidly, we haven't seen that for a couple of years with Jim Knowles at Ohio State. Do we see him lean more into his history? That's something to be aware of. And I know Buckeye fans and all of you listening out there, you know that that's been a topic of conversation out there in Buckeye land as well. So Nebraska at Ohio State, I'll be there. Big Noon Kickoff will be there, and Gus, Ginny, and I will have the call. All right, now let's get into the picks here as we start to pick and preview some of these games. Let's start with what I think is a really good and big matchup as we've got Illinois at Oregon. So Illinois is now ranked 20th in the country. Oregon is the new number 1 team in the country. And what does that get you, Dan Lanning? Well, it gets you favored by 21.5. That is a lot. And you're going to understand why as I roll through this. First and foremost, I do love the approach that Oregon is taking. I was skeptical that they would play well last week after a big emotional win at home against Ohio State, and then they had to go on the road against a Purdue team that had not played very well this season, and you're going to be on the road on a Friday night. And I thought, man, that has all the trappings of a game in which you kind of sleepwalk through the first quarter. Wrong. Ducks came out fired up. They came out executing. That was clearly a veteran-led team. Lanning had them ready to play, and that was really impressive to me. Now, is it impressive that they shut out Purdue and they go, and win that game? What was it, 35-0? No, that's not necessarily impressive. What's impressive is how they started the game in what I considered to be prime letdown territory. Dan Lanning understands motivation. He understands process. And the evidence of that is his answer to a question earlier this week in a press conference when he was asked, hey, man, how does it feel? Oregon's number 1 in the country for the first time since 2012. Remember, when he first got here, they got their doors blown off. I think it was 49-3 against Georgia in his first game at Oregon. It's like, well, what do you say about that? And he's like, Who cares? And I'm like, that's why they were prepared against Purdue. That's the approach that I think Dan Lanning is bringing to the Oregon Ducks, and something that I really love. No letdown last week over Purdue, but now they get Illinois. Okay, so this is not a trap game. This is not a letdown game. This is just a tough game because Illinois is underrated at 20. They are an underrated football team. This Illinois team is not flashy, which I think is one of the reasons why they don't get the credit that they deserve, but they are built in the image of their head coach, Brett Bielema. They are tough, they are physical, and they are sound. Love watching them play on tape, by the way. They do a lot of great things on defense. Their offense, with Altmaier at quarterback, they make enough plays. They take care of the football. And you look up at the end of the day, and they ran the ball for 187 yards on that Michigan defensive front. And that Michigan defensive front, for whatever you think about the Michigan team, is still one of the premier defensive fronts in college football. That still remains true. And Illinois ran it for 187 on that Michigan team, 5 yards per carry. If you look back through the history of the last couple of years of the Michigan defense, that's the most anyone has run on them since the 2022 TCU game in the Fiesta Bowl. That's staggering. Okay, so Illinois can run the football. They are physical. This is an underrated team at 20th in the country. We saw them hang around in Happy Valley earlier this year. That's still their only loss. It was to an undefeated Penn State team in Happy Valley at night, and that was a 7-point game in the fourth quarter. So to me, folks, you know where I'm going with this. 21.5 is just too much. It's just too much. Illinois is tested. This is their 5th game against a ranked opponent in their last 7. And yet Oregon's playing great. Dylan Gabriel is playing great. The defense is playing solid. They're distributing the football on the offensive side. Gabriel finding a way to get Evan Stewart involved has really expanded their offense, because early in the year it was kind of Tez Johnson, maybe Jordan James, and then not much else. But Gabriel has found a way now to distribute the football so that the offense from a production standpoint has a wider lens. I think that has paid off in a huge way for Oregon. I just think Illinois is built to stick around in this game. Now, Oregon fans, before you start getting all over me, I just want you to know we are 29-14, so we do know what we're doing here against the spread. However, did you know, Duck fans, that I'm 0-4, 0-4 when picking Oregon games this year? I think you know that. And again, not just outright, but against the spread. So that means that on the season, our show, I'm 29-10 in all the other games, other than Oregon games, 0-4 with the Ducks. So you're welcome, Oregon fans. I'm going to take the points for Illinois. I think Oregon gets the win, but Illinois covers. That's a good omen for the Ducks. I think that this game is somewhere in that like Oregon 34, Illinois, 17 range, right in there. I think Oregon could win handily, but 21.5 is a lot for a team that is so sound and physical as Illinois. Illinois plays solid defense, and so even on the road, I like an Illinois cover in this one. I'm going to take those 21.5, take the Illini in the Oregon win. So Oregon 34-17. This is a huge win in the SEC, and this is where I think the SEC championship game participant is going to come from the winner of this game. LSU at Texas A&M, number 8 LSU, number 14 Texas A&M. And how about, can we just like stand back and this is why I love college football. This game. And because what it represents, two teams that early in the year had giant matchup style huge games to start the year. In week 1, you had Brian Kelly and LSU going out to Vegas to face USC, and you had Texas A&M and their first-year head coach Mike Elko welcoming in Notre Dame. Both teams lost emotional, physical games that came down to the last quarter. And a lot of us, and I'm guilty of this as well, but I think a lot of us are in this sport, is we kind of write teams off. Because remember, in the past in college football, one loss was massive. One loss was massive. And I do remember kind of stating early in the season is like, we do have to leave some room for quality coaching staffs to develop their team and for players to learn from mistakes and become a better team along the path. Now, we've seen some teams not get better. We've seen some teams get a lot better. These are two teams that have developed, and this is why I love the sport, is because I do kind of know what it takes to do what they're doing, and it's difficult. It is difficult. Both of these teams stared adversity right in the face and walked right through it this year. And because of that, they are more tested than other teams. And I think that they could probably be more confident in themselves than other teams. So losing that opener and high-profile matchups and then coming back, both of them have rolled off 6 straight games. And now you start thinking about the matchup, the environment, night game in Kyle Field. I love the Aggies in a night game in Kyle Field. However, if you peer into this LSU team, there's a lot to like, folks. And this is one of the reasons why I have moved them up in my rankings. There's a number of reasons why I think that they continue to be one of the better teams, not only in the country, but in the SEC. And part of that is their improved defense. Okay, so a couple of guys that I think have played great for them. Whit Weeks, he leads the SEC in tackles at 10 per game. Braden Swinson, he's been tremendous. He's second in the SEC in sacks with 7. And if you just go back to like what Weeks has done over the last couple of weeks, it's been tremendous. 18 tackles, a sack against Ole Miss, 9 tackles, a sack, and an interception last week against Arkansas. So the LSU defense, I believe in. And this was a defense that similarly to USC last year was abysmal. And they had to get better, and they are getting much better. And I love to see that. So they've done a tremendous job on the defensive side. And then you still have this offense that with Nussmeier and the advent of a bit of running game as well with Durham, like this is a really good team. You know, I believe in LSU. I believe in Garrett Nussmeier. I think that this is a team that can win this weekend. I think this is a team that can go play for an SEC championship game. And I do believe at this moment in time, in late October, LSU's absolutely a playoff team. I believe that they're going to go to the playoff. It will be tough in this game because A&M is doing a lot of things that I love as well. Namely, they're running the football. So that defense, which has improved not only getting to the quarterback, but against the run, they're going to have to face Le'Veon Moss, who's the second leading rusher in the SEC. You know, LSU held Arkansas to 38 yards rushing. That's a good omen, okay? Then you've got Connor Wigman. Connor Wigman is not Nussmeier. And in a lot of ways, my pick in this game lies in the hands of the quarterbacks because both teams are developing. I like both defenses. I like a lot of things going on, but I trust Nussmeier more right now than Wigman. Wigman was a little shaky last week against Mississippi State. He threw a couple of interceptions, could have thrown a couple more. Mike Elko has said that, you know, it was just a progression issue and all of these things. But again, it comes down to trust. Who do you believe in? And right now I believe in Nussmeier more so than I do Connor Wigman. It's a great matchup. LSU O-line, Texas A&M D-line. LSU has allowed a total of 2 sacks all season. Only Army has allowed fewer. Another reason why I really like Nussmeier, who has stepped up in big moments against Ole Miss in particular when they finished off that comeback late in that game. So here's what I like. First of all, I was shocked that A&M was favored in this game. I think LSU is going to win the game. They have a quarterback that I trust more than the opposition. So even on the road, a guy that I believe has showed up in big moments in Nussmeier, I think he wins the game. Now, I don't think they're going to blow him out, but 27-24 LSU, you bet. All right, let's go to Notre Dame Navy in MetLife Stadium. I think this is an incredibly interesting matchup. So Notre Dame is favored by 12.5, and Marcus Freeman's club has been decimated by injuries. Offensive line, they're banged up. Defense, they're banged up. Secondary, they're banged up. And here comes Navy, and Navy's really good, folks. Navy is very good. Navy has been one of the highest scoring teams in the country this year. They're 4th in the country in scoring offense. Now, this is a great matchup game because Notre Dame's defense, even with some of the injuries, they've been tremendous. They're 5th in the country in scoring defense. I do think it's always tough to face the academies. Notre Dame is going to understand this because they always do it every single year. But this style is difficult to get ready for, although I do think Navy's is a little bit different than the old traditional just triple option that we've seen in previous years. Notre Dame did face Georgia Tech recently, last week. That was a run-heavy, RPO-based system, a lot of quarterback runs. So maybe having seen that, they'll be more ready for what Navy is going to bring to the table from the offensive side. I just like the midshipmen, man. I'm telling you, they're really solid. They haven't turned the ball over since the opening game of the season, and they're going to make Notre Dame earn everything that they get. It's a really sound team. This is why, listen, I think that in a lot of ways they're underrated as well. I think Illinois is underrated at 20th in the country. Navy's underrated at 24th in the country. And Navy gave Memphis their only loss of the season, hanging 56 on them. Like, Navy's a really good team. Blake Horvath, he leads their offense. He averages 150 yards through the air, 100 on the ground. He already has 20 total touchdowns. They'll throw it about 13 times per game. That's what I was referencing and saying. It's like, it's not your dad's Navy team. It's not even your older brother's Navy team. They're a little bit more exotic on the offensive side. Just to give you a reference, those 13 throws, that's a lot more than, let's say, Army this year, who's also playing well. Army throws it about 8 times per game. I told you about the Notre Dame injuries. That's what's concerning me. That's concerning me quite a bit. Riley Leonard and the passing game have just not gotten much going, and they're just not much of a threat. Notre Dame is a running football team. That's what they are. And I think that plays into Navy's hands. So I'm looking at this line, and it's Notre Dame favored by 12.5. And I'm like, I like Navy outright. I'm calling for the upset. I've got Navy outright. I've got them 20-17. I think that the magical year continues. I think that we start talking about a Navy potential playoff berth after this win over Notre Dame. I've got them 20-17, and they're getting 12.5. That's an easy one for me. I think I'll take that all day long with all those injuries on the Notre Dame side, their lack of passing game, and the soundness that we're seeing Navy play with. I think that that's an easy pick. Let's go back to the SEC. Number 21, Missouri at number 15, Alabama. Missouri is not the 21st ranked team. You talk about overrated. If Illinois and Navy are underrated, Missouri is still overrated. And now Kalen DeBoer, I tell you what, man, you talk about the fire. Kalen DeBoer at Alabama is in the middle of the fire. 3 weeks ago, you're coming off a win over Georgia. You're the toast of the town. Who needs Nick Saban? They're number 1 in the country. And 3 short weeks later, they're number 15 in the country, their lowest ranking since 2010. Welcome, Kalen DeBoer, everybody, to the party. Wow. How quickly everything changes. Now, the sense of urgency is going to be there for Alabama. I think that you're going to see Alabama play one of their best games of the season this week. They're at home. They're going to be playing a team in Missouri that I don't love, to be quite honest with you. I think that they are completely overrated at 21, and they've got a quarterback in Brady Cook that is banged up. Now, gutsy performance from Cook last week against Auburn. He ended up going to the hospital, getting an MRI on a high ankle, and coming back and leading a 14-point comeback. Like, love it, man. I love when I see quarterbacks show some toughness. And Cook has always, in a lot of ways, proven me wrong. And I really enjoy watching Cook play. But this Alabama team is going to be playing for their life. Brady Cook is going to look across the field, and he's going to see a Bama defense that is playing for their life. The sense of urgency, this is a wild animal backed into the corner. You will absolutely get Bama's best in this game. I firmly believe that, offensively and defensively. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, unless Missouri can just kill them with the downfield passing attack, I just don't love Missouri in this game at all, really. And it's one of the things that I think we expected Missouri to have that hasn't really come to fruition. Cook only has 8 completions on throws of 20 or more yards down the field. He had 29 last year. So it pales in comparison. And even though Burden is an incredible talent on the outside, there's no doubt. And I think that he'll get some catches and have a productive night. They don't have enough to face a team in Alabama that their back's against the wall and they're going to absolutely play their best game. Mizzou has been totally underwhelming against Power 4 opponents. Think about this. They've played 4 games against Power 4 opponents. A 6-point home win against Boston College, overtime home win against Vandy, a 31-point road loss at A&M, and a 4-point home win over Auburn. And now they've got to go to Tuscaloosa to face an Alabama team that is playing for their life because Alabama knows, as I told them this week, they're not going to the playoff unless they win out. They are playing for their season. This is it for Alabama. You don't think they're going to give their best effort? You don't think that they're going to play a cleaner game? You don't think that you're going to get Milroe's best? Milroe's going to clean up those mistakes. I know he's turned the football over. You're going to get his best effort. There is no way 13.5 is enough. The only time Missouri has traveled on the road in the SEC this year, they got blown out by 31 by Texas A&M. 13.5 is not enough. Give me Bama. I think generously I've got 38-21. I'm giving the 13.5. I'm riding with Bama as the favorite, and I think that this has all the makings of Missouri not playing well with Cook coming off of that injury. I don't think he's going to be 100%. You can't get an MRI. And by the way, I would just say this. Trust me when I tell you this as a player. The easiest day to play through an injury is the day that you get the injury. It's much worse the next week after you have to deal with swelling and tightness and stiffness. You've got all the energy and dopamine that you need in your own body to kind of get through an injury the day it happens. You can shoot it up and just go out there and you're like, okay, I can get through this. But the next week, nope. 13.5 ain't enough. I love that pick. Give me Bama all day long. All right, let's go Penn State at Wisconsin. Penn State up to number 3 in the country. They're favored by 6.5 at Wisconsin this week. And they're coming off of a bye following that huge, can't state that large enough, comeback win over USC. And now they have a night game at Camp Randall the week before hosting Ohio State. Did you hear that? The week before hosting Ohio State. So they're going to go to a place where maybe they don't feel like that team has performed all that well in Wisconsin. They're going to play there at night on the road in what Camp Randall will be a great environment. The week before, what has, I'm sure, been a game that has been circled on every one of their schedules since last year. Trap! This is a trap game. There's no doubt. Penn State is favored by 6.5, and Wisconsin is on a roll, folks. Wisconsin has 3 straight blowout wins. They're not squeaking by opponents, and I get it. You're going to tell me, Joel, they haven't played anybody in those 3. Fine. But when you don't play anybody, you know what you should do? Blow them out. And that's exactly what Wisconsin has done. They've beat Purdue, Rutgers, and Northwestern by a total, wait for it, of 107 points. 107 points. The defense in those 3 games has allowed 1 total touchdown. One. And we got a trap game? You see where I'm going? Okay, so this run game for Wisconsin has gotten better and better and better. Now, unfortunately for them, remember Ches Malusi, their veteran running back, he had to step away. He wanted to get healthy and try to rehab injuries that have dogged him throughout his entire career. But ever since then, Tawi Walker, the Oklahoma transfer, he's coming in and has been tremendous for them, for Wisconsin's running game. 22 carries, 139 yards over the last 3 games, 6 touchdowns. All right, and this is a Penn State defense that just gave up 189 rush yards to USC. Granted, 75 of those were on one play, and it was that fake end around to Zachariah Branch. But that's still a lot of yards against that Penn State defense. Meanwhile, the Wisconsin defense has been really, really good against the pass. The last 3 games, you look at their pass defense stats, and it's like, it's pretty good. That's where I start to throw a little bit of like, okay, but it's Purdue, Rutgers, and Northwestern. And that's fine. That's fine. And I'm trying to acknowledge that as well. Wisconsin's Braden Locke, remember, he came in for Tyler Van Dyke when Van Dyke went down against Alabama in a game that Gus and I and Jenny were calling. And the air left the building and the program in a lot of ways. And this Braden Locke steps in, and it's like, what are we going to get? What's going on this season? Hey, 3-1 as a starter. I know he's got 5 interceptions, but he's developing. They're running the football a little bit better. And I think Wisconsin is playing so much better than what they were earlier in the year. I think Luke Fickell is developing something that could be classified as somewhat special. By the way, Jonathan Smith is doing similar at Michigan State, right? So like those two teams are much better now than they were at the beginning of the year. Meanwhile, you look on the Penn State side, and this is where we're going to go with our breakfast blitz, guys. Don't fumble the most important meal of the day. Instead, treat yourself to a delicious Hampton Waffles breakfast at Hampton by Hilton's free hot breakfast. You know that I enjoy the waffles. They're my favorite part of my Saturday mornings. I always get a nice balanced breakfast, cup of coffee, and the waffles are tremendous. And the breakfast blitz is about the Penn State defense because it is about their pass rush. And the pass rush, unfortunately, for Penn State has been a bit inconsistent. We have seen pockets of dominance, like the 7 sacks against Illinois, and then we've seen them kind of go away in other games, 7 total sacks in the other 5 games. So this game, in a lot of ways, for me, when you're on the road, you have to control the game. You've got to control first down. You've got to get the opposition into obvious passing situations. The defense for Penn State has to show up, and they've got to put pressure on Braden Locke, the young quarterback with 5 interceptions over his 4 starts. He's 3-1 as a starter, but he's thrown 5 picks, so you've got to put pressure on him. So that's where the breakfast blitz lies. How much confidence does Drew Aller take from that comeback win against USC? Even though he turned the football over, the way that he played late in that game, and more specifically on some of those 4th downs, should give him a lot of confidence, at least in my estimation. He threw for almost 400 yards. Tyler Warren developed into what can only be categorized as basically the best or one of the best pass-catching tight ends in America. He set the FBS record with 17 catches, which is just staggering. Their kicking situation has gotten much better as it relates to what they have been previously. So they've replaced their kicker with a guy named Ryan Barker, and Barker has gone in and he's 6 for 6. So a lot to like about Penn State, and yet trap. So here's what I'm going to do. I think Penn State wins because they don't generally lose regular season games unless they're facing like the best teams in college football, Ohio State and Michigan over the last couple of years. So I think Penn State wins, but I'm going to take the points with Wisconsin. I think it's a 6.5-point line. I think we can all see a situation where Penn State wins this game, 24-21, 27-21, right around there. They escape. Maybe they've got to come back looking towards next week in that game against Ohio State, but I'm going to take Wisconsin and the points against the spread. So here is where the picks lie. We just created this week, and Klatt, by the way, Klatt is a Tennessee fan and grad, and all you Tennessee fans upset at the show, like, you're just making Klatt upset. That's all it is. Like I said, Tennessee fans, it's not my fault that the one guy the camera showed couldn't light his cigar. That's not my problem. That seems like a you problem. Okay? And good luck this weekend. Here are the picks this week. We've got week 9 picks. So I'm taking the points with Illinois. I'm taking the points with LSU. I'm taking the points with Navy in an outright upset. I've got Navy folks winning that game. I'm giving them with Bama because Bama's going to play their best, and I don't think Missouri is going to be able to hang it all. And I'm taking the points with Wisconsin, even though Penn State wins the game, maybe late, close, in what is absolutely a trap game looking ahead towards next week in their game against Ohio State. So that's where we sit. Folks, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for jumping in on the program and these picks during the course of the year. Enjoy the week of college football. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've got a lot coming out here in the coming weeks. And yeah, enjoy the games. Have a blessed week, everybody.